So let's kick it off and talk about some bad water cooler topics. Isn't the weather great? How was your weekend? What am I missing? There's probably some really bad ones. Cliche.
Yeah, no, I don't know. The weather's like very topical right now. It's Toronto, it's summer, it's too hot, it's too cold. So lots going on with weather right
Life
now.
goes on.
Life goes
Did
on.
you catch last night's game? And I think I'm about to become a cliche for saying, let's talk sports for a minute. Seemed weird. Bear with me. The Stanley Cup Finals went down this week. Somewhere between the Florida Panthers drinking from the cup and their parade route, players had time to share the injuries they played through. Some were playing with torn adductors, hernias, MCL sprains, and most of us probably wouldn't even be able to get out of bed or want to, but they sacrificed their health to chase their dreams. What I took from that is, look, sacrifices are inevitable, but when does it go from being a choice to an excuse or a bad habit? When does that MCL sprain go to becoming an MCL tear? Which perfectly brings us to our conversation for today. Purpose or pretense can sacrifice cut both ways. To do that, we have the one and only Andrea, and I'm going to need my notes for your background because it gets more impressive each panel. Okay, let's see if I do this justice. Andrea is a growth-focused executive with expertise in brand building, customer acquisition, and scaling businesses. She's currently in the role of fractional chief revenue officer at Bird, a global micromobility leader, where she's supporting the team in developing their growth agenda. Previously, she spent a decade at Go Easy, where as EVP and CMO, she helped the company's market cap from $300 million to a mere $3 billion. I feel like I need to give a slow clap for that one. Passionate about purpose-driven leadership, she led Go Easy CSR efforts and founded its Women in Leadership program. She also held roles at TELUS, XM Radio, and Mobilicity, and began her career in management consulting. What did I forget? I feel like there's so much more.
You forgot nothing, but this is why I love ChatGPT, because they can even take like a hot mess like me and turn it into those magical words. So no, thank you. Sounds like you're talking about somebody else. So I appreciate the kind words.
Well, we'll go with another slow clap.
Thank you.
Okay, so like I said, we are talking sacrifice today. Can it cut both ways? Can it be a good thing? Can it be a bad habit? So what we'll do is we'll hand it over to Andrea. Before we do, you're going to hear three things from her, or three sections. One is, what's her view or personal experience on sacrifice? It means something different to all of us. We'll have her tee that up. We'll then have her walk her through what her puts and takes are and why she believes there's always some sort of trade-off involved. And then we'll be forward-looking. There's probably a large group of people that are going to listen to this with very different backgrounds. So as we look ahead collectively, what should we all do with this?
Awesome. Okay. So I love the topic, first of all. And some might think, it's not that provocative, it's not that spicy, but I actually find it quite spicy and quite provocative. And I'm going to start off the top and implode the topic in and of itself. And so you and I had the opportunity to chat a little bit beforehand, and we talked a little bit about sacrifice and the word sacrifice. And, I took it away and I started to think about what sacrifice means. And I realized I have such an adverse reaction, a visceral reaction to this word. And I really started to question as to why. Why did I react that way when I talked about sacrifice? And I gave it some thought, and what I realized is that the word sacrifice just actually has a very negative connotation. It implies that you're giving something up that's more important. And under that pretense, the word just tends to make me a little bit uncomfortable. And I think that words matter. I'm a marketer, and so I always like to choose my words carefully. And so when I thought about it and thought about, well, if it's not sacrifice, then what is it? And the word that just kept coming up for me all the time was choice. And for me, the reason why I like the word choice is because it puts this sense of accountability on the individual, right? When you have a choice, there's nobody else aside from yourself that's responsible for making that choice, for living with that choice, for making that decision. And so I'm somebody who thrives in a world of accountability. And just thinking about the topic overall, it really felt to me that it wasn't necessarily about sacrifice, but it really comes down to the choices that you're willing to make.
We're going to park the word sacrifice for a moment. We're going to call it a choice. Do you think a choice always has to be synonymous with a tough decision? There's always something you have to consider as you make it.
So I don't know if it has to be synonymous, but I love the idea that it should be, right? Think about a world where you were always choosing between things that were easy, right? When you think about it from that lens, like, does it have meaning? Is it important to you? Is it relevant? If it's so easy to make one choice over another, then I don't think it's that important of a choice that you're making. And so I think to be in a world where you're making tough decisions and choices, you've got to think, you've got to be curious. It, presents this kind of notion that not everything is yours, at least not everything at one time. And that if you want to do lots, and if you want to have a big life, and you want to have lots of people in it, and lots of hobbies, and lots of things that you're doing, you're going to have to make choices. But what a gift to choose between two things that are super, super important to you, right? So I think often they're tough decisions, but I don't think we should be afraid of that.
It almost in a way sounds like it's something that can and should be high risk, high reward. Because if
Totally.
it were easy, you're probably already doing it. You're getting the status quo. This is something that's going to propel you. And if it doesn't, it may actually have the opposite effect.
You want to feel something, right? And so when the decision is hard and it makes you feel something, I think that's when you know that you're presented with like two really good options, and you have this opportunity to choose between two things that you care about, two things that are important to you. And so for me, I love that, right? It makes a lot of people, I think, uncomfortable, but I think if you're always making easy decisions, then maybe something isn't quite right.
So find that out. It makes people feel uncomfortable. Tell me more. Why do
I
you think
think
that is?
Because I think at the end of the day, if you come back to sort of the word and the language of sacrifice, when you're presented with two really good options and two decisions, people just don't want to miss out. And the whole FOMO thing is just so real. And I think it's hard sometimes for people to walk away from a situation.
Did I freeze or did you freeze?
Like, I in the sense of getting something and missing something, but just in terms of building yourself forward, I think it's such a positive viewpoint to have, because then it takes this sense of like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I made the wrong decision. And it takes something that could be like so big and important, and then you're just like consumed with it all the time, versus saying, I made a decision, I'm happy with it. There was two great things I was choosing me from, and I'm going to go with the one that I think is most important.
It's a really great way of looking at it. So with that, I think you said it perfectly of it makes people uncomfortable. A lot of people haven't probably thought about it through this lens. If you were to turn back the clock, let's just say start of your career, midway through your career, would you have felt the same way?
So probably not, but maybe not for the reasons that you would think. So I think one of the great things that comes with age and experience is you really stop caring what other people think. And so I think the reason why I kind of answer it in that way is, in my younger years, I don't think I ever felt like I had agency to own the decisions, because I was always worried about what other people thought about the decision that I was making. And so now, as you sort of get older, as you have more experience, as things in your life change, my perception has always been like, this is for me. And it comes back to that accountability thread, right? Where I'm not doing it for anybody else. I have one life to live, it's my life, and I'm going to make the choices, and nobody else has to make the same choice that I'm making. But at the end of the day, can I get up every single day and say, yep, I think that was a good choice? Or if it was a bad choice, can I unwind it and make another choice? And so again, I think it just comes back to more confidence than thinking through the decision differently, but really making it about myself, my family, what's important to me, versus what other people would think or how I'd be judged.
We'll play that out, and this is going to get a bit into the puts and the takes section. Is confidence, it's something that clearly comes very naturally to you, but may not come as naturally or as easily to others. And it's something that when you have it, people tend to respect that in you. Do you believe because you can make a sacrifice, or because you can make a tough choice and you have the confidence to stand behind it, that people view that as a badge of honor?
So I love that question. And again, I'm not going to take credit for this, but I was listening to a podcast where Esther
We would
Perel
have
was,
given you credit anyways. Just
and
wondering.
I'm a huge, huge Esther Perel fan. And somebody was asking her about confidence. And she said, confidence is the ability to see your flaws and still hold yourself in high regard. And it was such a like cool moment for me, right? Like, and this was literally 2 days ago. And I was like, oh my God, why did that hit so hard, right? And it hits so hard because one, it gives you permission to be confident and be flawed. And I think people think when there's confidence, somebody is perfect. And those two things become synonymous. And so if I take it back to the question and, position around decision making, if you know that you may make bad decisions, you might not always make the right decision, but you're confident in that moment that with the information you had, with your gut feeling, with whatever it is, that was the right thing, then you're able to make that decision and not feel like it had to be the perfect decision, but rather just a decision. And if it doesn't work out, you could still feel confident about what you did because we're all flawed and we all make mistakes. And so that just like hit me so hard the other day. And I think it's really relevant as it kind of relates to this topic.
I started talking about cliches and I'm going to shoot myself in the foot and talk about them again. It's this idea of progress over perfection.
Totally.
If you have confidence in that you're learning, you will progress. Even if one could say you made the wrong, tough decision, if you don't and you strive for perfection, you're never making a decision and you're stalling yourself.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting though in that question, when you talk about, progress versus perfection or progress over perfection, again, it probably makes people uncomfortable, but I actually think you can hold them both together. I think you can look at perfection and progress and be able to achieve both. Now, perfection is not something that exists. It's something that's in the eye of the beholder. I think we all kind of, know that over time. But I think your measure of what perfect is can change over time. And that's the progress part, right? If you're holding a fixed state of what perfection is, then I think it's hard to progress. But if your view of what it means to be perfect, to have a perfect life, to have a perfect career, if you can change what that actually means, then I think you're able to continuously make progress to that.
You said two very interesting things in there. You talked about career, you talked about your life. You got it personal, you got it professional. When you think about tough decisions, again, I'm banning the word sacrifice now, or we're reframing it, do you always think it's one versus the other? The personal decision will be versus the professional one or vice versa.
Oh, it's a good question. I think in today's world, it's really hard to just decouple those two things in general, right? To think about making a professional decision that didn't affect you personally would be pretty tough, right? Do you take a job that is going to require long hours? Well, that's going to affect you personally, right? Do you take a job that requires less hours? That'll also affect you personally. So I think there's always trade-offs in those choices. But I think if you look at it from the lens of your whole life, both personal, professional, you're making trade-offs constantly, but I don't think they fall into one camp or the other. I really think there's like fluidity between them. And when you acknowledge that, it feels okay, right? Because it feels like in one moment, you could be focused on your career and your career objectives. And that might mean that you've made a choice there to, put something personally on the back burner, right? It could be fitness, a hobby, lots of things, right? But I think knowing that those two things can ebb and flow over time, I don't know, just makes things like a little bit easier than thinking it's a fixed decision, it's completely irreversible, right?
Well, let's take that and we'll start with what I opened up with. So we think about Florida Panthers. They were all banged up beyond belief. And personal was fluid with professional there of, look, you may have an MCL sprain today. You're probably going to have knee issues in 10 years because of this when you're long retired. But you're chasing your childhood dream as well, which is part personally, it's part professional. So as you think about that, tough decisions, having confidence in yourself, can it ever go too far and become unhealthy, unproductive, an excuse, a crutch?
So I think it can, but again, you've got to own what that is, right? I think oftentimes when it does go too far, something's broken, right? Something broke, a relationship, somebody's health, like something broke in the whole equation. And I think that's when people say, you know what, it just went too far. But if for you personally, like you can own it, then I kind of say, who are you to judge, right? In your same hockey example, I remember a couple weeks ago, one of the players' fathers passed away. And he got the phone call, and an hour later he got on the ice. And I just think about that example because there's one side of me that thinks, oh my gosh, like what a resilient human being, right? To go and chase their dream in this situation that they're in, and they can kind of stand up there and do what they need to do. Then the other side is like, wait a minute, this was your father. Like, how can you do that? And so when you take both of those perspectives and you just step back for a second, I'm not the person to judge that, right? Like this individual has to live with that decision.
You're not
And I
living
think
with the outcome of it.
right. And to bring it back to this notion of confidence, like it's his life to lead. And if that was the right thing for him, I think it's so easy for people to judge what other people do. But when you let that go and I don't, can you swear? I'm not gonna swear. When you don't,
It's trying really hard not to. We're just gonna do it.
it's like when you stop giving a shit what other people think, it's so liberating because this guy in that example just did it for him. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if somebody thought it was great or somebody thought it was terrible. And believe you me, both people, there was both sides of that, right? But at the end of the day, he did what was right for him. And so I just love that, with experience and age, I think that confidence comes and you own the decisions that you make. And it really is one of the most liberating things, I think.
The same thing happened in Top Chef.
Oh,
The person who won, his father passed away on one of the, I think it was the last couple nights, and he had to make that tough decision. Do I go home and be with my mom, or do I see this through? Because that's what I've wanted and what he would have wanted for me, and he ended up winning.
right. And what a
I
story
thought that was just the producers, but it turned out well. It turned out really well.
Well, now I know what TV you're busy watching. So I learned something new.
Okay. So if I play back what we've heard so far, sacrifice isn't a word. It is having the confidence to make a decision. And it is giving yourself permission to see your flaws if it doesn't play out how you thought it would. But at the end of the day, it comes down to something that's for you and you only. Nobody else can stand in your shoes and help you understand, was it the right choice or the wrong choice at that point in time. So if we were to look forward, and for everybody that will be listening, let's start here. Is there ever a world, is there ever a time when you can be making too many of these tough decisions?
That's a good question. I don't think so. Again, I think this notion of like a life well lived is one with purpose.
Hmm?
When you're faced with tough decisions, it just means that you have a lot of great opportunities, a lot of great options, versus it being seen as like a bit of a negative. So I think for me personally, I don't mind it. I think it's a reality of life. And again, if you have so much weight on every single one decision, then yes, I think for that person it becomes really tough. But if you think about the fact that like most decisions to some degree are reversible, right? Like generally speaking, you can change things, right? If you have that mentality that, you know what, I'm going to make the best decision that I can with the information that I have right now. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to proceed down a different path and I'm going to be okay with that.
And you're going to make your next tough decision. And reverse
Exactly.
it if you need to. Lean in
Exactly.
more if you need to.
Now, listen, I'm not one who makes a decision and then goes back on it all the time. But again, it's just this like flexibility to know that if you had to, most decisions could be changed, right?
Okay. Now, of course, it's only for you to make and for you to own. But at times, we do and want the input or support from others. How would you suggest everybody to best ask for that input or support as they make these A versus B decisions?
So, I mean, a lot of people talk about sort of their own personal board of directors, and I love that concept, right? So, I think it's about surrounding yourself with people. It could be informal mentorship, formal mentor, friends, people from different industries, different walks of life. But I think having that group of people who can actually be pretty honest with you and like brutally honest is really, really important because at least in my opinion, having people who just always agree with you and think it's the right decision and support you in that way, probably aren't the people that you want, right? Those people aren't challenging you. They're not getting you to think differently. And of course, at times you need those cheerleaders, and sometimes you need people to back off, even if you're going to make a decision that they don't agree with.
Work is often different from your personal board of directors.
Totally. Or they could be one and the same too, right? I mean, I think it depends, but I think at the end of the day, having people that are willing to like challenge you and say, are you sure about this? Or, you could do this, but here's what you need to know is so important than having people that are just like yes men and yes women who kind of agree with you, right?
Okay. So tell me, what should I have asked that I didn't when it comes to looking ahead?
So I think there was an interesting question in there. I'm going to try to find it, which is you asked about what would I think it was, what would you say to somebody here? Would you encourage a mentee to make the same sacrifices you have? And I think that's a great question. And I think my answer is kind of a hard no, with the caveat that it depends on what they want. And so I think one of the most important things, and again, I won't take credit for this at all, but Emma Greed, who's the CEO of Skims and Good American, an incredible woman. She has her own podcast. I would encourage everybody to listen to her. What she said is, if you want to achieve extraordinary things, you have to put in extraordinary work. And when you put in extraordinary work, you have to make, I'm going to say the word, the dirty word, you have to make sacrifices. There is just no two ways about it. It's just not possible to be everything at once and to be trying to accelerate in your career and put in the hours and the time and be great at 10 other things. And so I think at times certain things have to, get deprioritized. And it really is this notion of you can have everything, but you just can't have it all at once. And
I
so,
refuse to believe that's true. No, joking.
and so to answer the question, it depends on what that person wants. And if the person, wants to become the CEO of an organization, I would say you're probably going to have to make some of the same sacrifices, and anyone that's telling you that you don't is probably lying to you. And so it really is up to them. But if they want a great job and a great career, and they want to do those 10 other things as well, they probably can. It just depends on what it is. And so I love that question because I don't think it's, an all or nothing answer. But again, if you can understand what somebody's trying to achieve and just have this view of some realism in terms of what it takes to get there and being real with people, I think that's important.
You'll know the right questions to ask and the right decisions to weigh against each other.
You got it. You got it.
And then your person's board of directors is able to push or challenge you in the right direction.
Exactly. And then the last spicy question that I think is a really good one is the conversation around sacrifice and choice more relevant to women, or do men have to make those same sacrifices and choices? And that I think is the penultimate question at the end of the day.
That's a great word. I'm going to use that soon.
I take credit for it. It's Ben Aldis.
It's good. I don't know when I'm going to use it, but I'm going to use it.
So I think that's an interesting question. And I think, my short answer would be that men are probably not faced with making the same sacrifices, the same choices that women have to.
And do you think those are more of the mental choices?
I think it's a lot of things. I think, look, there really is a fundamental, family life decision-making piece that comes in where regardless of how helpful, there's just a mental load that comes on to women more often. I'm not saying always, but more often, where they're the ones juggling, is there milk in the fridge? And did I sign up for gymnastics? And is the homework done? And it's pajama day. And it really is this mental load that I think is a little bit different. And so, again, just my opinion. I'm sure many people have different opinions on this, but I do think that the notion of choice, trade-offs, and sacrifice probably falls a little bit heavier on the side of females than it does for our male counterparts.
Hey. So any final thoughts, or I'll start to wrap us up. We did not follow our questions at all, but I think that's great. I like where the conversation went because I think we got really deep at sacrifice isn't a thing. It's having the confidence to make tough decisions. You can recalibrate if you need to. But no, there will be flaws, and that's a good thing that's going to progress you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly. It's all about, owning the decisions that you make, owning the choices that you make, being grateful to be presented with, hard choices that are important to you, that have purpose, that have meaning. And at the end of the day, having the confidence to know that your life is yours to live, and those trade-offs, those decisions are yours to own. And if at any point in time you're not happy with them, you can find another choice, you can make another decision, right? It's really up to you to kind of find that path and carve it out.
I like that idea of it. Be grateful to make them. I started with a cliche. I did another bad one midway. I think I'm going to end with this. This idea of being grateful to make them. It's almost like the crisis of opportunity.
Love it. I love it. I'm going to steal that one. Look,
I'm
we all
done
have
now with
something to steal.
cliches. I'm going to just bow out.
I love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Lauren.